I mean, 70 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. So, right there, his immune system wasn't well.
Hello and welcome. My name is Michelle Wolf, and you are listening to the Move Forward podcast. Each week, we will be talking about living life to the fullest and making the intentional choice to move past trauma. I'm a registered massage therapist, a whole food lover with farm roots. It's important to slow down, take time for healing, and to incorporate proper nourishment through fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. During this journey, I'll be speaking openly about my personal experiences with cancer, loss of a loved one, wellness, and infectious optimism. Plus, you'll get to hear interviews with many truly inspirational and informative guests. We'll tackle each challenge with courage and care. Thank you for joining us on a mission to move forward in body, mind, and soul. Now let's begin. Hello and welcome back to the show. Today I have Tara Finnigan with me today, and I am super excited to have you on the show today, Tara.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Yes, I'm pretty excited because I feel like we've been chatting for probably the past year or so through Instagram while I've been doing this health journey, and I've been watching you kind of been doing your health journey through your health food store. And when I launched my podcast, I remember thinking, who do I want on the show and who can I, what kind of people do I want to interview? And you came to my mind, and I didn't even know your backstory, but I thought, she's gotta have a story.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I would love for you to share with our viewers maybe a little bit of your backstory, and then we'll dive into why you've created the business and where you are today.
Okay. Sounds good. So I was actually born in the same neck of the woods as Michelle. So coming from a rural area, raised on a dairy farm. And so I, went to a small elementary school, a little bit larger of a high school, carried on to university, Trent University, where I did cultural studies. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I got my degree and worked at a travel agency for a bit. I taught in Taiwan for a year. And then when I was at the travel agency, I just felt like that I needed to do something else. So I actually went to Australia, and I went to teachers college there and came back and started teaching. So I taught actually elementary school, grade 7 and 8 mostly, for 7 years until I became pregnant with my first child. So I was due the middle of June, and at this time I really wasn't into anything natural. I was aware of it because my father would go to see naturopaths for his health. He had stomach issues in his early 40s. And so I was aware of it, and, I would see him juicing cabbage and all of this stuff, but I just didn't, nothing pushed me far enough to really dive into it. So when my first child was born, Mackenzie, she cried for the first 3 months of her life. And it's a moment in time where even now when I think about it, I can feel the stress internally, something that I'm working on. But I went to the doctor, and they said that she was colicky, and my intuition said no, that there was something more. But my doctor was not hearing anything of that. So from there, I then pushed, and I said, something's wrong. I was at my wit's end because literally she would sleep for maybe 2 hours and then scream nonstop. So emotionally and mentally, I was not well. And so I went to the doctor again, and I said, what, there must be something else wrong here. And so then they diagnosed her with reflux. And for me, I thought, well, why does my newborn child have reflux? And they couldn't give me an answer. And I'm someone that I like to do research. I like to learn, and they weren't giving me those answers. So I felt very helpless, which is not a great feeling. So they then prescribed her some medication for the reflux, which didn't sit well with me either. And it helped a little bit, but did not fix the issue. So then I pushed to see a pediatrician, and we got in to see the pediatrician, and he went along the same line saying that it was reflux, and he just upped the dose. Again, I still wasn't satisfied with that. And by now I'd started looking into options to help educate myself. And so I was looking at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, which was, it was in London. And I would have to go to school 2 to 3 days a week. So I can remember actually the course had already started. My husband was away moose hunting, and I texted him and I said, I think I'm going back to school. And he messaged back saying, oh. And so I asked if I could do some correspondence for the first couple courses that I had missed, and they agreed to it. So then in October, Mackenzie, I got her into a daycare while I went to school, and I started going to school to become a holistic nutritionist.
And at this point, is Mackenzie feeling better? Like, she's not obviously crying anymore, but did she have other symptoms or anything going on?
Yeah, so she had severe constipation.
Yeah.
So she would go for well over a week without a bowel movement. I guess I should also say a bonus to this is that my mom was a nurse. So, you know, she's providing me the allopathic side of things, and which was a godsend, really. So yeah, we had to, you know, they would say, you know, give laxatives and whatnot, or increase her fiber for Mackenzie, and none of this stuff was working. So there was the constipation, and then there was also, her skin was like eczema, very rashy. Yep. Which in hindsight, knowing what I know now, were telltale signs. But anyway, so I was at the pediatrician, and then I pushed to go see a GI specialist, gastrointestinal specialist. Okay. And again, they were kind of looking at me like I had 4 heads, you know, saying, you know what, it's just reflux. It's very common. It's not a big deal, but it was a big deal to me. So we did get in to the gastrointestinal specialist, but it wasn't until February. And so by then I'd been in school for a while, speaking with my teachers, and they said, well, did you take her off dairy? And I was like, no, because I did not breastfeed with Mackenzie. It was just not a comfortable thing for me. And I didn't do it. And I do believe still that, you know, breastfeeding is something that it is everyone's individual choice. So she was on a milk-based dairy formula. And as soon as I took her off of that, she was a brand new child. Wow. Her bowel movements improved. Her skin started to clear up very slowly. And she was content. And she needed 0 medication. Which, you know, at the time I was excited about, but also really frustrated. Absolutely. Because I also then learned that her internal physical body was filled with inflammation, and that's what was causing the eczema-like symptoms, her constipation. And so she had a lot of healing that needed to take place now to get her back to optimal health. Absolutely. We did get in to see the GI specialist, and I will say that I was happy that when we did get in, they did confirm that it was a dairy allergy. Okay, so after all that time. Yeah, but it took 8 months to get us there. So, which is too long, I feel. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So, so then, you know, I got my child feeling happy again, and I'm still in the process of going to school. And so while I was at school, then a couple of my teachers were BIE practitioners, which stands for bioenergetics practitioners. So then I decided that that was something that I also wanted to do. So it was a very intense 1-week program. And so I went to Oakville for that. And the reason that was...
Sorry, can you explain what bioenergetics practitioner is for our listeners?
Yeah, so the reason that was so important to me is because what BIE does is it brings the body into homeostasis, which means bringing the body into balance.
Right.
So a BIE practitioner works with vials. So it's little glass tubes that have water in it, and then the energetic frequency of various stressors. So in Mackenzie's case, her stressor was dairy. So there would be a kit with 30 to, the kit that I use is 36 vials in it. And we muscle test to identify if the body recognizes the stressor. And so if the body recognizes the stressor when you're muscle testing, the individual will be strong. And if the body doesn't recognize it, the body will be weak when you test. And what that is saying is that your body doesn't recognize that stressor. So Mackenzie's body did not recognize dairy. So when she came in contact with it, consumed it, it created inflammation internally and then created symptoms. It also meant that she was unable to absorb any of the nutrients that would come from dairy.
Right.
And so by reintroducing these stressors to the body, so you use acupuncture points, you don't use a needle, but I have a machine and you set the vials on the machine, and then you reintroduce it through the acupuncture point. So it sends the energetic frequency through all the cells in your body, and it basically just re-educates the cells, teaching them that this is dairy, this is how you digest it, this is how you access the nutrients, and this is how you get rid of the stuff that you don't need from it.
And so with this process, are you doing that so that she's able to consume dairy again and be okay with that?
Exactly. So with dairy, it usually takes about 7 sessions, and there's 2 weeks in between each. And so I did that with Mackenzie, and she now can have dairy without any issues.
That is amazing. So would you say she has it on a daily and she's okay, or do you try to limit it still?
So with dairy, and being a holistic nutritionist, I'm not a huge fan of dairy, only because it is very difficult to digest and it's mucus forming.
Exactly.
So it's also acidic. So it's not something that is going to be raising our physical vibration. So as a whole, I don't recommend it to my clients, just kind of maybe as a treat here and there. And for my family, we definitely don't have it on a daily basis. We do consume it here and there, nachos and pizza and things like that when we have it, but it's definitely not a regular item that we consume.
And I feel like that would make things much easier for the fact that, if she goes to a birthday party or if you're going on a holiday, it's really hard to know exactly what you're getting in your food. So obviously to be able to consume a little bit of that is going to make a huge difference in her life.
Definitely. And I should mention that quite often when people are born with a dairy intolerance or a dairy allergy, there is the possibility that the body can heal itself and they can, outgrow, per se. That is quite often how people word it, the allergy. So with Mackenzie, I did wait until she was 2 because I was more curious. I wanted to see, was she one of those individuals? How well did her body heal itself? But at 2 years old, she still had a very intense dairy allergy. So that's when I chose to clear her.
Okay, amazing.
With the BIE, yeah.
Right. And so you're practicing this and you're doing this on other individuals as well?
Yes, yeah. So it's a fascinating, I don't know what you want to call it, modality, I guess,
Sure.
because you can work with so many different things. So some of the things that I work with, people who have an iron deficiency and they've been taking these iron supplements, but they're just not getting their levels to where they need to be. And quite often what it can be is that for one reason or another, their body doesn't recognize the iron. So no matter how much they take, their body just isn't utilizing it. So by reintroducing iron, whether it's, in the blood serum or as in a mineral form, we educate the cells to recognize it so that it can uptake it. And so basically, again, it's just my role is to assist in bringing the body into balance, and then the body is what heals itself.
That's fantastic. Okay. Wow. I think that's incredible. My boyfriend, actually, he has an intolerance to dairy, and it took him over 40 years to figure it out. And his symptoms were asthma, extreme allergies, like extreme, all of his life. And it wasn't until, we got his blood tested a couple years ago now. And ever since then, he's been off dairy and he's a new human being. And I just think, there's so many people who just deal with these issues, or just like, you go to your doctor and your baby's colicky and they tell you that's normal. And okay, well, maybe it's normal because it's happening to people, but it doesn't mean that there's not a reason for it.
Exactly.
So I think it's really extremely important for more people to know this. And so I think it's so great that you've dabbled into this and are teaching and educating others. Now you mentioned also your father, he's gone through some things as well.
Yes.
Did you want to maybe get into that as well?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I do believe that the universe guides us where we need to be. Because 10 years ago, if someone had told me that they were looking into my future and this is where they saw me, I would have said, right, like that there's no way that that's where I would be. But as I mentioned, my father in his early 40s had stomach issues and digestive issues. So he had a lot of inflammation. He couldn't eat a lot of things without having, pain in his gut, bowel issues. And so he did the allopathic route. And when he didn't really get anywhere there, then he looked towards more holistic practitioners and started going to a naturopath who then focused on healing the gut and identifying these foods that were causing the inflammation. So his naturopath took him quite a ways, and he was, feeling good. Basically, he changed his diet. He switched to a whole foods diet. Now, being raised on a farm in a rural country area, it's not that we were eating out all the time by any means. It was fairly basic meals, your meat, your potatoes, your vegetables. But it really just made him pay attention to how he felt after he ate certain foods. So he really increased his vegetable intake. So that took him to, a place of pretty good well-being. So I was aware of, the impact that food had. But then probably it would be about 3 years ago, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so that was, the word is always very scary. What I have learned to understand or to share with others is that it doesn't have to be that scary. And that what it really means is that your immune system isn't working. So when we look at it that way, it's a little bit more tangible or understandable. And it also shows that we hold power in that we have the ability to work with our immune system and to improve our immune system.
Absolutely.
And that being said, I do believe, though, that everyone has a certain journey, and, it's different. It's not everyone's journey is the same. No one's journey is the same. And some people have a lot of bumps in the road. And I believe that we're here in this life to learn. So I look at my father and I think, okay, he has prostate cancer. And I look at it and I think, why am I part of his journey? What am I learning from this? Or what is this going to teach me? So because he had such success with holistic practitioners, he did choose not to go the regular route of radiation or chemo, and did some holistic modalities. And he did have success. He did laser ablation. Sorry, I should have that name written down. I should have been prepared for that.
Okay.
But it was laser, a certain modality using a laser. And unfortunately, it worked really well, but unfortunately it didn't get all of the cancer. So he did end up having his prostate removed, and that would have been last year. And he had the best surgeon in Canada, I believe. And he did an amazing job, and he had full function of everything come back.
Wow.
Which is not always the case, but I think it's good to put it out there that it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I think each story, especially when it comes to something like cancer, prostate cancer, if he would have maybe got it detected sooner, maybe he would have been able to get it completely controlled on his own or with the natural route. But yet there is that option to be able to, for instance, have his removed. And so it's working together, doing a little bit of this and maybe a little bit of that. Again, every story is different.
Definitely. And, working in a health food store, you have a lot of conversations with your customers. And I know that some people will come in and they're very frustrated with the allopathic system. And I really try to share with them that, we need both spectrums. We need the holistic and we need the allopathic, because they both bring so much to the table. Absolutely. And, I do understand, that there are frustrations, and there's frustrations on both sides though. And I think we need to appreciate, our regular MDs for, and the wonderful services that we have in Canada. We are so blessed to have these amazing doctors.
Absolutely. Yep. I completely agree. A time and a place, and each scenario is different. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you said that your dad is now regained all function and everything's going well with him there?
Yes. And one of the things that I want to share is, so my belief as a holistic practitioner is that optimal health includes mind, body, and spirit. And I do understand that that is something that is a little difficult for some people to grasp or believe, and I respect that. But I will say on specifically for my father's healing journey, he was working on all aspects. So he was using a lot of energy healing modalities as well. Theta healing was one of them. Body talk is another, and access consciousness bars, because through his journey, he also realized that there were experiences that had happened to him earlier on in his life that emotionally were manifesting physically, because they hadn't been dealt with, and they hadn't really been released. So they'd just kind of been pushed down and pushed down. And I think that's a really important thing to talk about, because stress affects us in so many different ways. And I think a lot of people in today's busy world, just, if they've have something going on or they have this stress, quite often we just want to push it down and ignore it, or, maybe have a couple drinks to forget about it. And that doesn't really serve us. And these energy modalities that are out there are can be really, really fabulous, and really help in releasing and healing those emotions.
I'm really happy you mentioned that, because it's definitely true. The stressors can come from whether it's food or whether it is you got in a car accident in the morning, emotional, or your past, or whichever, but stressors are stressors, and they can cause the exact same effects or similar effects from one to the other, it's a stressor. And so dealing with the food is one aspect of it, but allowing yourself to be able to deal with your emotional aspect of those stressors, I think is just as important, if not more.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I would love to hear more about your business, about starting your business. You said that you started it out as selling produce in your garage.
Yes. Yeah. So when I started my nutrition practice, I would, I like to really focus people on whole foods. And then, if needed, then you would look at supplements. So I was, recommending certified organic just to minimize the toxins, especially if there is an issue at hand. You really want to minimize those toxins. But unfortunately, our local grocery store, it was pretty slim pickings. And so that meant in my area, people were driving, 45 minutes to access good certified organic produce. And even then it was kind of hit and miss. So I thought, how am I expecting my clients to, follow protocol if they can't access this stuff? Like it's one thing to like get the food in your house and actually utilize and make meals and stuff. That's difficult in itself. But then, I'm saying, but you got to drive 45 minutes to get it. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. And as well, for myself, I was also driving to get my food. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, there was a program already started in Ilderton. And so I went and spoke with them, and I actually started my business with a partner. And so we started off just with a certified organic produce box program. It was run weekly. People pre-ordered, and then they picked up on Wednesdays in my garage. And we had a wonderful response to it. And so we ran that. I guess it would have been like 6 or 7 months. And then that's when we kind of evolved into a health food store, because people were wanting us to carry some pantry items. And we saw that the demand was here. And in Huron County, which is where I'm from, there really wasn't anything like that, what we were envisioning. So, supplements, cooking items, healthy lifestyle products. So, so in September of 2015, we opened Local Organics Health, Food, and Wellness Center, and we had some practitioners there, some office space. We have a loft area where we do educational talks, which majority of them are free, just to help educate the public. There are some courses that we run that do have a fee, lots of energy healing, spiritual courses that we offer. And we have noticed that there is a huge demand for those too. So within the store, we have our coolers and our freezers, supplements, as I said, the healthy lifestyle. So like your reusable straws, reusable mugs. We have a spiritual section where you would find like tarot cards and incense and sage. And the response has been amazing. The community was very welcoming, and we pull customers from across Huron County and from Perth County as well, which is really exciting. So, and then just this past September, I opened a store in Goderich, also called Local Organics. And it basically has the same footprint as the one in Seaforth. And it's going really well also.
I'm so proud of you. And obviously I grew up in that area, and I understand how difficult it is to get what we need and what is necessary for optimal health. So I'm so happy that you have gone this route, and you're allowing that to be available for so many people who would normally never have that opportunity. And also the fact that you're having these courses and things, I think that's a huge part of another issue in these rural areas is the lack of education. So I remember when, even for instance, like when I started on this journey, I became a vegetarian, and I remember being made fun of. Even by family members, I'd have, aunts and uncles kind of joke around and make fun about it. And, it's because they weren't educated in what I was going for, what I was believing in. And so I'm just really excited that you have those courses to be able to educate people, and for somewhere for people to be able to go to learn more about that.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right, Michelle, is that education it's probably the most important thing. And when we were opening the store in Seaforth, our goal was to create a wellness hub where people could come in and feel safe and welcome, and where they could ask questions. And part of the reason, as I had said, we have these free talks is because there's a lot of information out there. And when you get into a critical situation and you start to do research, it becomes very overwhelming, which can at times create even more stress. So, we want our wellness centers, our local organics, to be a place where people feel they can come for answers, or if we can't give them those answers, that we can give them the support or guide them to someone else that can give them or help them with answers and support.
Exactly. I have actually quite a few listeners from my hometown, and I had one individual who messaged me yesterday looking for some certain products from our area and asked me where she could get them. And of course, I mentioned your store. And I actually told her, I said, please make sure you say hi to whoever's there. Make sure if Tara is there, make sure you say hi, let her know who you are and that I've sent you. And I said, because it's really important to get to know these people so that when you go in there and you have questions, you feel comfortable to be able to do so. Because she's starting fresh. She has no idea or has very limited idea of what actually she's looking for, what this is about. And, to me and you, Tara, we already understand because we've had years and years of this journey and we have an interest for it. And I think that's a huge thing. We're interested in it, so it may become maybe a little bit easier. We're open to looking into it more. Whereas someone who's not necessarily as interested in this topic as much, it might be a little bit more difficult for them. And they may push it off until something goes wrong. And then they're, left in the dark and wondering, what do I do? And it's a scary world, I'm sure.
Definitely. And I think, one important thing to realize too, is that you can't do everything all at once.
Right.
And you need to honor that. I know when I first, I was taking my nutrition course and you're learning so much. And there was moments of feeling very overwhelmed, thinking like, how is this even possible for me to incorporate all of this into my life? And in that moment, it wasn't possible. But, it's making those small steps and bringing those small things as part of your regular lifestyle, and then adding another one in once you're comfortable with the first one, that makes it an achievable goal.
Absolutely. I remember when I moved to the city, I had just met my boyfriend, and it's fun going out and you want to entertain and be out and lots of different foods and drinks. And that was different from my normal. And then finally I said, let's make a rule where during the week, we do not eat any desserts and we don't have any booze, alcohol, and then we would allow ourselves on the weekend. So it was kind of that happy medium of trying to be able to incorporate, this fun and exciting new journey, but also being able to stay within my idea of what was healthy and what was right for me.
Yes. And I find for myself, because I do like to go out and I like to have a good time. But I think, you definitely have to set your boundaries, because it can be a very slippery slope.
Absolutely. Especially if you're used to living a certain way for so long, or, and then trying to create this. And also if the people around you aren't as interested, that's okay. And I think that's a big piece of it. It's allowing yourself to know that, not everybody is maybe on this journey quite yet, but if you're interested in it, then you keep going forward with that. And that's okay if your family or your friends are not quite there yet.
Yes, definitely. An example of this would be, so when I married my husband, I was a teacher. So when I wasn't into nutrition at all. And then
you're still a teacher.
Yes. Yes. But so then as I was on my journey, he, inevitably had to come along with me for some of it, because, the way that I cooked meals changed. And, I had to, take a moment to be respectful that, I could share with him, but I couldn't impose things on him.
Mm-hmm.
And initially I was imposing without really thinking about it. And that moment, taught me that I can share my information with individuals, but it's their journey and it's up to them to decide how they use that information or if they want to use that information.
And I find usually what is the saying where, if you do something, people are going to recognize what you're doing and watch what you're doing, and they're going to learn from that. And they're going to want to do that because they see you doing that and they see you improving.
Yeah. And I think, so I have 2 children now. So Mackenzie is now 6 and I have a son, Kieran, who is 4. And children are prime examples. So I've been doing the Wild Rose Cleanse. And so, they were eating things that I couldn't have. And I said, oh no, I can't do that. I'm cleansing. And so Mackenzie said, well, why are you cleansing? And I said, well, I'm just giving my body a rest. And, so that I feel better, that my energy comes up and that I can digest food properly, really basic way of explaining things.
Mm-hmm.
But, she was asking questions and I think, down the road, she says, I think I'd like to do a cleanse sometime. Mm-hmm. And so, I explained that you don't have to necessarily take supplements to cleanse, but, it's not having any sugar or, not eating dairy and things like that. So, definitely, you lead by example, not by necessarily what comes out of your mouth, but people are always watching and picking up on things.
Absolutely. Lead by example. Mm-hmm. I definitely live by that. And whoever wants to choose to follow, that's great.
Yes.
And if not, that's okay too. Wonderful. So it sounds like there's been a lot of change, a lot of really wonderful things that has come out of your journey. I want to know, do you have anything that you're really proud of or that you're really, maybe somebody gets some information from you or something has changed in their life? Is there anything that's happened that you're really proud of or you're really excited to share with us?
Oh, that I'm really excited to share. Do you know what? I guess I want people to know that I'm still on a journey and I love helping people. I love sharing my story. And I think it's really important for people to share their story. So I absolutely love what you're doing, Michelle, because there's a lot of things people just don't think that anyone else is going through, and they are. And that can be physical and it can be emotional. And I think the more that people share, the more we can learn and grow together. So I don't know, it's not necessarily something exciting that's happened to me, but it's something that I just want everybody to know.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a common question that people ask you when they come into the store? Is there anything that you think is quite common and, it comes up quite frequently that maybe we could share with our listeners now, so in case they're maybe going through that as well?
It's a lot of the time it's ailments that they're coming in with, but one thing, anxiety and depression are huge. Mm-hmm. Energy levels, or people not being able to sleep. And so one of the things I think is really important, that I don't think enough people realize, is that the food that we put into our bodies can be responsible for a lot of things. And yes, we eat to give us energy and so that we can live. But if we're consuming something that our body doesn't recognize, it can work against us. So, for example, if you had an intolerance or your body didn't recognize broccoli, but you were eating broccoli, it can deplete your immune system and cause you fatigue. So I think it's really important for individuals to, kind of get in tune with their body and pay attention to when you eat something, how do you feel after? Or what are your bowel movements like after? And to realize, what foods are working for them and what foods aren't working for them. Because just by identifying that, can help with your sleep. It can help with anxiety and depression, and it can help with your energy levels.
I'm shaking my head up and down. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, that was great. And I hope people hear that and they listen to that and they know that there's something you can do to change it. If you're having symptoms or if you're having something going on with you that is just not working quite right, whether it's not getting that sleep or being depressed or, not being able to go to the washroom, constipation, there's usually an answer. And so if these people come in, or let's say even around the world, you're obviously a great resource for our area. And I would love for anybody to stop in, talk to you, maybe see how you can help them in many ways. But if for anyone around the world, what would you suggest if they're having symptoms or if they're having something going on? What should they do? What's the steps of maybe to finding that optimal health?
I think, definitely going to see a holistic practitioner is wonderful, but I also know that not everyone has benefits and that the pricing, can deter people. So I think I want people to know that they hold the power. So something as simple as a food journal. And, or a food mood journal, I guess is what I call it. So, document everything that you're eating and document how you're feeling, how you sleep, what your bowel movements are. And, because if somebody asked me, what did I eat 3 days ago for lunch? I couldn't tell you.
Exactly.
But so that's why you want to write all that down. And it's important to write down like, oh, you know what? I was feeling very anxious this day. But if I go back and I look at my, diary, I can see that I ate this and this the night before, or I can go back 2 weeks and I can see I was feeling very anxious on this day. And funny enough, I ate the exact same thing the day before as I did 2 weeks ago, and to make that connection. So I think, we do hold the power, and there are a lot of things that we can do on our own. And a lot of it does come down to listening to our bodies, in regards to the symptoms that they're displaying to us, and, really focusing on eating whole foods.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. So Tara, where can our viewers find you? I know you have your store in both Seaforth and Goderich, but then you're also a practitioner. So do you have a website or any information of how they can contact you?
Yes. So definitely, if you go into any, either of my stores, if I'm not there, my staff can guide you as to where I am. And my home practice is called True Potential Health. And I do operate from my home office, but if you were to Google that, you would find truepotentialhealth.ca is the website. I will say that it does need to be updated. But I've had a little bit on my plate lately, and it's been one of those things that went to the back burner.
But they can find you there either way.
Exactly.
Email or phone number or whichever.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Well, Tara, I truly want to thank you so much for not only sharing your story, but also sharing more information to be able to help so many other people that are out there and helping them direct them to the right direction on potentially helping save their lives, if not at least improving their lives in so many ways. So I truly thank you for all that you're doing and for joining us today on the podcast.
And Michelle, thank you for inviting me on the podcast, and thank you for doing this. And I've been listening to your podcast, and you're doing amazing things. And the world is grateful.
Well, thank you. I'm already looking forward to our next conversation. I'm sure we will have lots more to talk about and share with our viewers. And yes, have a lovely day. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me and the Move Forward podcast. I am extremely grateful to each of you. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to share this episode with someone you think would benefit. Also, if you could please leave an honest review by going to iTunes and leaving your thoughts and questions. Let us know what you would like to hear more of so we can continue to inspire and share with the world. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am forever grateful for this community that we are building and the individuals we are helping. Until next time, we hope you continue to move forward by choosing to move your body, your mind, and your soul. Thanks, guys.